Hello and welcome to today's video. This is my June wrap up and this is going to be like a rapid fire wrap up. We're just going to go boom boom boom, talk about the books, talk about them quickly and give you my thoughts. June was a weird reading month, but I read quite a lot. I'm quite impressed with how much I read to say how weird it was. In total I ended up reading 14 books in June and that totaled 4,777 pages, so yeah, I'm really happy with that. That's a decent amount of books and I assume that's a decent amount of pages, but to be honest I haven't compared it to other months, so yeah. We'll just see. I don't know if I have any weird statistics to talk to you about, to be honest. I read 6 of the books physically, 4 of the books audio, and I assume 4 of the books ebook, but I use the same colour brown for my pie chart as I did the writing, so that was clever. Then in terms of genres, there were 3 fantasy, 3 poetry, 6 fantasy romance and 2 non-fiction, 7 serious, 7 standalone. We've got 9 adult, 4 new adult and 1 middle grade. And that's pretty much it. Let's just get into it. So at the very start of June, the first book I picked up was Princess Ever After. You will eventually see this in a reading vlog. I did a reading vlog right at the very start of June where I tried to read a few books, basically was the whole premise of it. I was just trying to read a few books, get a few books off the TBR. This was one of them. I read in that. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was really good. I did really genuinely enjoy it. This is by the same author as the Tea Dragon Society and I prefer that one a bit. My main problem with this, it was so short. I felt like it could have done with being just the tiniest bit longer. It was a total of 53 pages. I just felt like some of the things that happened would have had more of an impact if I'd have known the characters a bit better by the time the things happened. So maybe a little bit more introduction would have been good. Really enjoyed it, really loved the artwork, really loved the story, and really like this style of, you know, this problem and then solving the problem with something very like wholesome and cute, and that just being like the obvious solve. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Would highly recommend. Then I read The Final Strife, and this was a really weird one, to be honest. I started out not loving it and it ended up being a book that I think could very possibly make it to my top books of the year. I gave it 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite 5 stars, but I feel like it could be 5 stars on a reread, because the main reason it's not full 5 stars is it took me a good 10 chapters to get into this. I don't know how many pages 10 chapters is. I guess I could just have a little look. So yeah, about 10 chapters, so that's 95 pages to properly get into it and be like, oh yeah, like I'm invested, I'm here, I understand, like I want to keep reading this. But wow, was it amazing. In this world we have people with 3 different colours of blood, and their colour of blood kind of like decides who they are and what they could be. So if you have red blood, you are like part of like the ruling class, like red bloods rule, like they have magic, they are the elite and they're in control. Then you have blue bloods, which are the dusters, and they're like poor, they're workers, they're very much like oppressed by the reds, but they work, they do stuff, they're just lower than the reds. And then you have the clear bloods, and the clear bloods are like properly like treated like shit, basically. They're the servants, they're invisible, and they're called ghostings. I don't really know how to talk about this. I went into this so blind, but what I will say is the character work in this is amazing. Like I just want to know more and more about the characters. I can't wait to pick up book 2. I've literally got it waiting. My audiobook hold from the library came in like yesterday, I think. So it's definitely the next book I'm going to pick up once I finish what I'm currently reading. And I'm so excited for it. I would also recommend the audiobook for this series. I read it along audio and physical and it was just great. It was honestly great. I had a really good time. It was very politics and very character heavy, and I think if you like that sort of reading you'll enjoy it. And there's also a lot of mysteries and a lot of things that I feel like towards the end of the book were starting to get solved, but I'm just so excited for book 2. So that was that one. Then I read Bargain Bin Rom-Com. This is a little poetry collection. I gave it 3.5 stars overall. Like it was enjoyable, it was fun and easy to read, and like I did have a good time with it. But I just realised that this isn't the sort of poetry I like, which shouldn't be that surprising. Like the poetry I normally go for is very emotional and heavy and hard hitting and like really like tugs at you and like makes you just want to like stab yourself like emotionally. But I didn't know that was the only poetry that I could love until I've picked up recently a few more light-hearted and a few more easy types of poetry, and I just haven't loved them the same as I do like the heavier stuff. So 3.5 stars. I think if you enjoy fun poetry, you do enjoy this. Like, I think it could be other people's 5 stars. I did have a good time. Then I read a book on my Kindle called Tide of Darkness. To be honest, I don't know how I found out about this book. I assume I was just scrolling through Kindle Unlimited, like, and it stood out because I don't know where I heard of it from. Like, I don't think I've ever heard spoken about, and I don't know how to talk about this either. We have 2 main characters. It's a fantasy romance, so stuff happens, and we have one main character, Mirren, who has lived a very sheltered life in an environment which I don't think is called a cult, but like, as someone who watches like quite a lot of true crime and is like, you know, very tuned into that world, like everything about how this place was described sounded like a cult to me. Like, I feel like it's cult, but that's not technically said. And yeah, very sheltered, and basically needs to get out to help save her brother and go find her parents. And along the way she meets Shaw, who we don't really know much about for a long time, so I'm not really going to say anything. What I will say is I gasped out loud at one point whilst reading this book, and at the end of it I am so mad at these characters and so ready to pick up book 2, but I've also been putting off picking up book 2 because I'm so worried about what's going to happen. Like, at the end of this book I was mad at them, but in the best way. Like, it made me feel so much that I was actually like mad at our characters, and yeah, it was great. Really highly enjoyed it. Then I read this short little non-fiction, Feminism, and I gave it 4 stars. It was good. I had a decent time doing it. I felt like, you know, it touched upon a lot of important points. It said a lot of things. Unfortunately, I just don't really feel like it set out to do what it was trying to do. And I've also read another book in this collection. This is the Tate collection by the Tate Modern Museum, and because I read the other one was gender, this just didn't utilise what it has. So essentially, like, it's combining personal stories with like actual knowledge with art, and kind of analysing art through time based on a specific subject, this one being feminism. And at the back of it, every time you're talking about art, there's like these different art pieces that it can show, and it just really didn't seem to utilise that as well as the other one did. And it really, yeah, I felt like I could have done with more pictures, and I felt it was a little bit lacking. It was really interesting, it just didn't 100% hit what I thought it was going to do based on what it said. So yeah, really good, really great. I'd say if you're sort of getting into feminism at the point where you're reading like We Should All Be Feminists, this is equally as good as that. Like, it's very different, it's very much talking about art, but it's very much like that sort of like baseline. I would highly recommend it. It just didn't dig as deep as I thought it was going to. Then my favourite non-fiction of the year so far, and that is Blind Spot. This is Blind Spot Exploring and Educating on Blindness, and I gave this 5 stars. There was no way I couldn't. I have tabbed this like I don't know what. Like, I feel like I learned so much, and I feel like it's genuinely impacted me. Like, I read this relatively near the start of the month. It is now, as I'm recording this, I think it's the 9th of July, and this has impacted me in ways where I'm still thinking about things that I learned in this book in my, like, honestly probably day to day, but definitely weekly. Like, I thought about this so much. And also I've been reading a few older books during July, and there's certain things that have said and certain things that have come up that, like, I'm really thinking about this book in the context of those books as well. Like, it really impacted me. I really highly recommend it, just in case it's not focused. This is it. This is, yeah, best non-fiction I've read so far this year, and honestly beats out a hell of a lot of the fiction. Like, this is really holding up, and I'm really thinking a lot about it. I'm already ready to reread it. Like, I got so much from this book. I would highly recommend it. Then I read a book called City of Gods and Monsters. And again, I can't remember how I heard of this or what I thought. I think this one, I might have seen some fan art on Instagram and like clicked through the different tags to find the author and found out that it was from this series. I liked it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was good, but it felt like a first book that was introducing a lot. It was a fun mixture of like urban fantasy and fantasy romance. And the reason I'm struggling so much to talk about this one is I read this one right at the start of like a very weird, like, emotional slump, reading slump, just everything slump basically. And I didn't feel connected to anything in this book. Even an event that happened that would normally get me in every book, I just didn't feel it. But I don't know if that was because of the book and the writing and the character development, or if it was just me because I was in such a weird place. So essentially I gave it 3.5 stars. I'm going to carry on with the series, but I don't know if it could be higher if I were to reread it. Like, no, I really don't know. Yeah, I read it in a weird time. I don't want to keep going on about it. Like, I'm over it now, but there was a few weeks in June where I just wasn't really reading. I wasn't really doing anything. So yeah, it is right at the start of that. I don't know. I don't know if I wasn't connected because of the book or because of me. So I'm just going to leave it as that. 3.5 stars, still good, still would recommend it. Like, I'd say kind of like a newer, more modern version of the Guild Hunter series by Nalini Singh. Although I'm not up to date with that series now, I'm aware they're still coming out, so that's probably modern now, but the ones that I read originally were like 15 years old, so yeah, that's kind of what I'd related to the most. Then I picked up this poetry book. This is Sincerely by h.eather. I didn't like it. Yeah, just being honest, I did not like it. I gave it 2 stars. It is the worst rated book of this month, and also in Q2 as well. I am going to be filming my Q2 statistics video very soon, and unfortunately this is the only 2 star, and I haven't rated anything below 2 stars during the month. Yeah, it's 2 stars, but it's a very personal 2 stars. I don't have much to like complain about or rant about. I didn't enjoy this. I didn't get anything from it. The things that we're speaking about in this book are very personal, and I did not relate or agree with any of them. The things that this author wants out of life, wants out of a relationship, wants out of like all that sort of stuff, I just don't agree or align with any of it. Not in a bad way, not in like a, oh, this person's so wrong, like how can you be saying that, Luke? Not like that at all. Like, it was all very personal things that like every single person is going to have completely different opinions on and want different things, and because of that it didn't work. I did write down there were 2 poems that I thought were really good in here, and that was Endeavour and Grasp, and then there were 3 poems that I thought were good, and that was Float, Fantasy and Love. I would say if you're religious, you're probably more likely to like this. There was a lot of mention of God, and that's just like not really it for me. And I would also say if you want a very societal norm type of relationship, like this was very much like sweetheart love leading to marriage, and like that was very much what was being, and it's just not me. It's not what I want. Like, it's not, yeah, I just couldn't relate and I couldn't really get with it. So it's not bad, but if you want those things, I think you could enjoy this. Like, I've read other collections by this author and really loved them. Like, one of their collections got 5 stars from me, so I think it just depends on the content and whether you relate to that content or not. Then I'm just going to really quickly do these 3. This was my favourite series of last year. There's actually 5 books in the series, but during my weird time in June, I didn't know what to do and I just couldn't do anything. I decided to reread the Lady of Darkness series because it's my favourite series, and I reread books 1, 2 and 3 during the month of June. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the reread. It was exactly what I needed. I have no new thoughts on it at all. If you want, I don't know, better thoughts, I can link when I originally read it last year up above, and I can also link my best books of 2023 video up above. But yeah, I absolutely love this series. It's my favourite series ever. I'll probably do an in-depth video just on this series at some point because of how much I love it. I am currently, well, previous to this I'd started rereading book 1, but very slowly, like every so often when I had time, like when I had a spare afternoon, I was like rereading it really slowly. I'm going to finish my reading books 4 and 5 at some point, probably within the next month, and then I'm going to go back to my original reread because I'm going through and like annotating book 1 like absolute crazy to like really get delving in. And I'm thinking of doing some sort of video on that. Like, I was thinking of doing a vlog, but then I'm thinking maybe I should actually just talk about it. I don't know, but I'm thinking of doing something like that because I absolutely love this series, and I reread books 1, 2 and 3, which is Lady of Darkness, Lady of Shadows and Lady of Ashes, and I would highly recommend. Obviously they're all 5 stars and they will probably always all be 5 stars. I still have not found a series better than it, and I read it last October time, I think. So yeah, favourite series of all time at the moment, so would highly recommend. Then, okay, so then in June I read Bite the Woman That Feeds. This was another one that was just on Kindle Unlimited. I picked it up. I like the world, I like their characters. There were problems, but it's quite a long series. I think there's meant to be 6 books in this series, so I wasn't too worried about it. Like, there were things I didn't like, but I was like, surely they'll get resolved, it's all okay. Vampires in this world were very much linked to snakes, and I'd never seen that done before, and there was a really interesting character in it called Fang, who gave a very interesting perspective and a very, like, no walls, no ego perspective that I feel like really helped the story. And I gave it 4 stars. Like, I really genuinely enjoyed it. And a couple of weeks ago I would have come in here and been like, I really recommend this, like, I'm so excited, but I DNF'd book 2 of the series, so I don't know how to talk about it. I ended up DNFing book 2. I can't remember if it was in June or July, to be honest, but yeah, book 2 DNF'd. I wasn't enjoying it. Things were happening that were just repeats of book 1. And then I looked at the synopsis for book 3, and one of my main issues still hadn't been resolved by book 3 and was very clear that it was still a main issue. So I DNF'd the series. I don't know, like, book 1 was good. I really did enjoy it. There were problems, but I thought they'd get resolved, but I now don't know if they will. So I don't know how to talk about it. I gave it 4 stars at the time. If I isolate that book in that time period, 4 stars, great. However, I've now DNF'd book 2. So I don't know. And then I read No Gravity. This is a very short poetry collection, and I gave it 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed the poems in here. I really liked them. However, this is the first time that I've read a poetry collection like this, where yes, it's a collection, it's bound up and it's here, but it's not all on one subject or one thing. It is very much, they are combined together because they were written at the same time. All these poems were written over 30 or 31 days. It was part of a, like, project basically to write the poems, and they're all on very different things. So some of them hit, like, some of them were great, and others I didn't mind so much. I don't know. Basically 3.5 stars, but I think it's getting 3.5 stars because of how the collection was put together, not the individual poems themselves, and it was the actual way they were collected together that didn't really work as well for me. So I'm very, very, very excited to pick up a poetry collection that has been curated based on the poems inside by this author, and I have purchased one, and I'm very excited to read something that, where, like, all the poems are cohesive and run together, because I think this is a potential 5-star, like, poet in the future, so I'm excited about that. And then the final book that I read in June was The Heirs of War. This, I picked it up because it was a standalone fantasy romance, and you don't see that very often. I gave it 2.5 stars. It was fine. I don't really have anything major to say about it. It was fine. The characters were interesting enough. Like, I did like our main character. It just didn't feel like it was ever fully developed. Like, I really want a good fantasy romance standalone, or just a good fantasy standalone, honestly. But I do feel like I struggle to find standalones where I feel like the characters are fully developed and have fully, like, been flushed out. Like, I did like it. It was a really fun, good time when I was reading it. Like, when I was reading it, there was never a point where I was like, oh, look, I might DNF this, or oh, I'm not having fun. Like, it was good when I was reading it. It just really didn't stand out. Like, it didn't really do anything, and I think I am quite a character focused reader, and the characters just didn't feel that developed. It had a satisfying ending, I would say, but I was still wishing for more. Even though the ending was satisfying, it felt complete. It felt like this standalone was a complete thing. I still wanted more from the, like, plot and the politics overall than what we managed to get in a standalone. So yeah, I don't know, but that was the last book I read. So those are all of the books that I read during June. Hopefully this has been quite quick. I'm hoping so. I've tried to go through them as quickly as possible because, to be honest, I don't have a lot to say about any of them. I will tell you, spoiler, I'm having a fantastic reading month in July. I'm reading a lot and I'm having a lot of fun, so I'm hoping that the tides are changing and things are looking up and looking better, but we'll have to wait till the start of next month to see if that continues. But yeah, that's it from me. I really do hope that you enjoyed the video. Please do give it a like if you liked it. Subscribe down below if you'd like to see more content like this. Let me know down below what your best book of the month was. Mine was probably The Final Strife, if I exclude my rereads and my favourite series of all time. But obviously if I don't exclude those, it was obviously the Lady of Darkness series. But without that, The Final Strife. I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye.